And we're live.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you who catch the recording later, of course, thank you. For those of you who are not familiar, my name is Julia Holly. I own JH Creative, and I love to feature other entrepreneurs. And I have a series called Filipino Hustle Fridays. And I'm so excited to have Nicole Calaustro here today to talk about business and Filipino American culture. So thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. I'm excited to be here. Hi, everyone. Thank you.
So really quick, I'll do a quick intro and then we'll dive in. Obviously, so you're the founder of Sweet Letters Calligraphy, and it was born in July 2020. Nicole didn't intend for it to become a business, but rather a space on Instagram to share her work. A woman owned AAPI business specializing in luxury calligraphy and engraving, serving Chicago and its suburbs in Illinois, and it offers engraving, calligraphy services at live events, collaborates with businesses in the Chicagoland area to create window and sign lettering, and brings wedding signage visions to life for soon to be newlyweds. So thank you so much for joining,
Yeah,
Nicole.
thank you, Julia.
So tell me a little bit, like it says, like I mentioned, you didn't intend for this to become a business. What happened? Like, how did
Yeah,
this happen?
I know. I feel like Sweet Letters was born during the pandemic. So at the time when I guess everyone had so much time on their hands, especially being at home. And I feel like it was just a good time for personally myself, a lot of healing. And where I found a lot of healing is through art. And so I remember when in college, I would oftentimes find myself journaling, probably should be studying more, but I would be journaling a lot. And I just so happened to pick up calligraphy. I am self taught. So that just was something I learned off of several YouTube videos. And finally, during the pandemic, I found myself kind of going back into while I was working full time, and I was in currently a full time student as well, getting my master's degree. So I leaned in a lot on my creativity. And so that kind of started with me just doing and practicing my calligraphy more often. And one day, my boyfriend at the time, now husband, he says, "Why don't you just post on Instagram?" And so I created an Instagram. I just started posting, and I remember I would just post like little pictures of pieces of paper of something that I wrote in, and that's kind of where the foundation really grew. I feel like it was something that I found it for myself, and it was a healing process for me, something that I never really got to dive into or really connect with throughout my college career, throughout working, because we were all so busy. And so I'm very thankful. Again, I know it was a different time for many of us and a different experience, but that's kind of where it blossomed. That's how it started with just lettering. Eventually, I started to get some requests from. It started out with a little family, some of my family and friends requests of wanting to do like their wedding signs, or someone was graduating and they just needed a sign. And so I think that's where I started to understand the foundation of what it's like to have clients and just gaining a following. And so I really enjoyed having that aspect of connecting with others, and so there was absolutely no intention of it becoming a small business. I purely thought it was just going to be a creative outlet.
That's awesome. Sorry for the little glitch there. I was like, why isn't it sharing
Yeah.
her
No,
Instagram? Like,
you're
so it
good.
was, yeah. So I wanted to share your Instagram account just because
Thank you.
that's where really how it all started. So that's so cool. So what did you major in? Like, I want to know a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I got my undergrad at Loyola University Chicago. I graduated with my bachelor's in exercise science. So I had every intent on pursuing physical therapy, a doctorate of physical therapy. And so right after while I was during my senior year, I should say, I immediately started looking for full-time jobs. I knew I wanted to take that gap year to fully invest my time in my physical therapy school applications. And so I immediately started looking for full-time jobs, and I'm very grateful enough that I started working as a physical therapy tech at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, which is actually where I currently still work. Which again, I'm very grateful for that organization. And so I actually started working at Loyola. We would have finals on Saturdays. And so my first day at Northwestern was that Monday. So I had 1 day break from work, from being a full-time student to working full-time, which I don't necessarily know if that was the best decision, but I am super grateful for it. Definitely know that I wouldn't be where I am today. So after accomplishing my bachelor's in exercise science, I worked with the physical therapy and occupational therapist at Northwestern for about a year and a half. And that is when I decided and really delved into understanding whether or not physical therapy was for me. And so I actually decided to switch routes and I went into the more healthcare administration side. So I went back for my master's at Purdue University for my master's in healthcare administration. So now I work as a project manager and I lead a bunch of different process improvement and performance improvement projects in my day-to-day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Very busy.
Yeah. And what was it like? I mean, growing up in Chicago and everything. So what's the story? Like what, people always ask, like, how did you come here? Or
Yeah, totally.
they're like, what are you? Like they
Yeah, I know.
Like, where are you from?
Yeah, that the golden question, right?
Yeah.
So some background to that. I was born and raised in Illinois. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago. My parents immigrated here, who are both Filipino, so I am 100% Filipino American. I was born here. My parents immigrated in the late 80s, early 90s to the US, and I can't tell you why they chose Chicago, but my guess is because they only knew Michael Jordan. And so we are going to go where Michael Jordan is, because I guess we were just big sports fans at the time.
Yeah.
So I absolutely don't know if that's true, but I'm going to go with that. So when they immigrated here in Chicago, and I have an older sister who also immigrated here, who was born outside of the US, and we started our life here. I lived in the suburbs all my life. And so when it was time for me to, start choosing which college, what the career path, and of course, I had the ultimate pressure that many Filipino Americans and Asian Americans as a whole can hopefully empathize with, is that you have the options of becoming a doctor, a nurse, an accountant, an engineer, anything with the title that, your parents understood at the time. So I, again, like many, knew that I wanted to go into healthcare, and I genuinely enjoy being a part of the healthcare administration world. So at the time, again, I was going for a pre-med because I was like, oh, I can become a doctor. That lasted about like my freshman year. And then I switched routes into physical therapy, which again, just getting exposure to the healthcare world, I feel a lot of empathy with. And the organization that I currently work for, as I mentioned, the overall backstory to that is while I was at school in Loyola, my dad also worked in downtown Chicago. So he would travel from the suburbs to Chicago on our like public train. And it's like maybe like an hour and a half to 2 hour commute ish. And so one day it was like my sophomore year. And I remember that I was in class at like around 2:00. I get a phone call from my mom saying like, dad's in the hospital. You need to go to him right now. And I said, oh, like, what happened? So she didn't know. And again, we didn't have much exposure. Both of my parents are not in the healthcare field, which I know is very different than a lot of Filipino families in itself. But I remember having to travel to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. And that is where my dad, he suffered a AAA, which is an aortic abdominal aneurysm. And it was the size of a grapefruit and it ruptured. And so during his commute, when he was traveling from the suburbs to Chicago, he walks from, and it's maybe like a 20-minute walk from where the train station is and where his job was. And in between that 20 minutes, he would have to stop into like whatever convenience store that was closest. And there would be like, a lot of abdominal pain. There was blood in his stool. Thankfully, at his job, there is like a wellness clinic, and immediately they called an ambulance for him. So he was transferred to the hospital. And I remember finally getting to the hospital and just understanding my bearings in itself. And the surgeon finally comes out. She was a vascular surgeon. And she said the words, "If we waited another 10 seconds, we would have lost your dad." And so that kind of, to me, it's like not paying it forward, but truthfully, the organization that I work for, I have a Purple Heart. I am very loyal to it. And so it's that in itself is meaningful because I want to give back to that organization. And so long story short, this overall, the growing up and having a lot of empathy. And I feel like a lot of that is taught in a Filipino household, and what, caring for our family and being there for them. So I try to translate what I've learned from my parents and growing up as a Filipino American versus, being surrounded by, wide different cultures in itself, and truly translating that into what I had envisioned that for my business.
Wow, so well articulate. And just
thank you.
I'm so glad your dad is okay.
Still with us today. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And there's a huge need. I mean, I know it goes without saying, our Filipino culture, we're so like one of the first things people say, "Oh, I have a friend who's a nurse." Like, Filipino friend who's a nurse.
Yep. And that's the first thing.
There's all the history behind that, but
100%.
There's something about, we're like known to be the most friendly, most hospitable, and
right.
It's nice that you're there still in that industry representing and being an entrepreneur on the side. So really cool. It's funny how like our parents think like, okay, doctor, nurse, engineer, like those are the options.
I know.
But it's funny, like culturally, Filipinos are just so talented. Like
100%.
Dance.
Yes.
Everyone
singing.
Knows. Yes.
Yep.
Everyone knows.
Yes.
Filipinos will win in karaoke contests. Not me. But
no. Oh, same. I could never, but I root for everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, design, artistic, so many things. It's just, and that's why Filipino Hustle Fridays, I want to show the world like how many talented entrepreneurs there are. So
truthfully,
what have you found? It's been 5 years since you started. Like, what have you found, challenges along the way and how did you handle those challenges?
Yeah. Wow. And first, I must say, I didn't even realize that it's been 5 years. It is 2025. So thank you for that. I will say I've gone through many different challenges. I think stemming from the beginning, I'm obviously not the first calligrapher. I'm not the first Filipino calligrapher ever. And so imposter syndrome hits you very, very hard, especially in the beginning, especially when you're trying to just figure it out and figuring out your niche and whether or not you want a niche. And so I think my first challenge is just that, like really staying focused of having my why of my business. And so I eventually have a business mentor. And I think one of the most important pieces that I ever learned is that if you don't have a strong why behind your business, behind anything that you do, it's not going to be sustainable. And so I always bring that back to me and my business of why I'm doing this. And it's truthfully why is because it's something that brings joy to me, and it's something that I own, that I can take ownership and I can be proud of, that no one else had an input on. So my parents, obviously, as I mentioned, they had a lot of input on my career path, my educational path. And so I just wanted something that was purely just for me and that I can make my own decisions. But the challenge came with just understanding, like seeing all of the talented artists and seeing all of the luxury brands that fellow calligraphers would be collaborating with. Like I knew at one point that I wanted to get there, but just having the imposter syndrome of it being kind of put down, it's kind of discouraging sometimes to see how others, but then I remember like, it's really just the mindset of it, because I feel oftentimes, again, this is stemming from, growing up in an Asian immigrant household, and a lot of comparison comes into play. And, why aren't you a doctor? Oh, your cousin is doing this and your friend is doing that. Like, why can't you be like that? And again, this isn't to necessarily bring any negativity towards my parents. Again, I'm only speaking for myself, but and my own personal experiences. But it was very tough to not also have that same mindset of comparing. And then on top of that, having a negative outlook on the comparison. And so it took a while just to really understand that everyone is on their own path and everyone is able and allowed to have their own journey, of however they get there. And instead of feeling discouraged, it was really like a light switch that I had to find in the dark and then turn on, to say that I should be happy for that other person, my other fellow calligraphers, because they're also winning. And I know one day that'll eventually come back to me in some shape or way or form. And so I really try to emphasize on rooting for other Filipino creators, Filipino Americans, Asian Americans in general, of just having that exposure nowadays in the creativity world. But it was definitely such a challenge of just having the mindset flip from I don't want to say jealousy, but it pretty much is jealousy of saying like, oh, how do I eventually become that one day, to understanding like everyone's path is different and it just takes the time and it's the process. So I think having that in mind of just really enjoying the process, that's probably a quote somewhere from someone, but I really have just been enjoying the process the last 5 years. And I guess I didn't even realize it's been 5 years. And hopefully that kind of speaks to how much that I've just been hustling and really wanting to see where my capacities can really rise to.
I love it. Yeah. And it's not the easiest when you're doing some kind of design for a client to make them happy, especially for, no offense to brides, but Bridezilla. We all can relate.
100%.
It is a stressful time.
It is.
Yeah. So it's not the easiest type of business too, when it comes to like a subjective aspect of pleasing the client, right?
I love that.
And so anyways, it's really, but you're having fun. You didn't even realize 5 years flew by. And
totally.
So that's telling, like you're doing what you need to be doing, right? I
agree. Yeah. And even with that, just the design part to it, because, your expectations may not match your clients or the brides. And so where do you find that you fit in with that person, or maybe you don't? And I think that's where the beauty of having multiple options, like you can see whatever works for you. Like if you like a style more than one, then that's okay too. But yeah, I think it's definitely eye-opening just to see the creativity, and that's the whole premise of it in general.
Let's make sure I share to show. I mean, hopefully this StreamYard's acting funny, but like, oh, I see how you also do luxury. Did you eventually land on that type of niche in time, or is that something you kind of jumped into right away, that you wanted luxury clients?
Yeah. So over time, I will say I knew I wanted to do a lot more in the live event space. So like those are some pictures of me like at a store. So I think the first picture on the left, that's at like Nordstrom. The second one in the middle is at Bloomingdale's, and then the last one was actually at a law conference. And so having these on-site events, I know, right? Like things and brands that I personally never even heard of. And the luxury part, I always make a joke with my husband, because I myself am not the most luxurious person. I don't own, I couldn't even tell you like the last purse or perfume bottle that I bought for myself. And so I make the joke, like, I don't wear makeup, I don't know any of these things, but the reason why I love that space and that niche in particular is connecting with like the audience. I gain so much joy of like being able to talk to someone and making their day and seeing their reactions to the engraving. Like I that is what I'm more so wanting. And I feel like with the luxury clients, like that is something I definitely had to learn and understand to even how to get my foot in the door. Because again, that's where like the imposter syndrome really started, is how do you even get to that point? And so eventually I'm very thankful. And I don't know if it was just a matter of me going into the stores and just handing out business cards, kind of like door to door back in the day. But that's kind of really how it really started, is just understanding what type of events that really I enjoyed and brought me a lot of joy. And then that's kind of where I started to build off from. So the when I'm doing live events, I usually specialize in engraving, but it really can expand to any sort of calligraphy services. So if there's like paper tags or cards that the client would like personalized. I've also done like wood burning and leather hot foiling. So like personalizing anything. What's nice with calligraphy is that we're kind of just like a mobile personalization machine. So you just got to tell us what the material is, and then we'll figure out a way how to make it, how to put your name on it.
That's so cool. So do
Yeah.
you, like, would you say most of your clients go through Instagram? Like that's how they find you?
Yeah, I would say a lot of have been through Instagram, and then, you know, I get a lot of emails mostly through my email. Or I'm sorry, I get a lot of inquiries through my email. And so that's where I kind of start the conversations. That's where a lot of my clients have first reached out to me. When throughout the business process, I definitely, looking back, I probably could be doing a lot more self-marketing, but given at the time I was in school and then I had a full-time job, I recently just got married last year, so wedding planning thank you, was like another third job. So it was a lot to manage at the time, but yes, I've been able to maintain some clients that I'm very proud to work with. So it's been fun so far.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so you worked with weddings, wedding luxury events and then
Yeah.
on-site events. Do you say that you have more regular brands that you can work with on repeat, which is kind of nice, so you don't
Yeah.
have to acquire a new customer in that sense?
Totally. Yeah. I would say a majority, if not, like, if I had to throw a percentage, I would probably say like maybe 80% is of my clientele, or the events that I currently do are repeated clients. So, and that's what I really value again. And it's probably like building those relationships. Because to me, like, I don't mind being with the same store or being at the same location, as long as like I get to really just sit there and do my own art. And that's where I find most joy. So I would say a majority of them have been repeated clients, which again, nothing wrong with that. I would love to continue to expand my clientele and explore like other opportunities or other mediums of different ways that I can personalize things. But I would say for the most part, I usually engrave on like perfume bottles or cologne bottles, a lot of glassware. So like wine glasses or different stemless wine glasses. The most recent type of events that I've been really diving into is actually combining weddings and live events. So now I don't know if this is a trend that's going on, but a few clients have reached out that I may have met previously, and they want an engraver at their wedding. So now they have like glassware or something that they want personalized, and that's essentially their wedding favor for their guests. And then they can come up to like the engraving station, aka me, and have like their glass engraved, and then I have it ready for them to take home. So that's just another great idea. I feel like, especially wedding planning, you always want to explore like, what can I bring to my wedding, or what's something new? So I've been really enjoying that too.
I love that. Yeah, I did see that you were also doing it for couples, and I was like, ooh, that's so cute and
I know.
like unique. And it does feel like a luxury experience too. You're doing that on site, during the wedding.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like the most, and it's a wedding, so everyone is just there having a good time. And I think them seeing it done in person, it's like such an experience. And again, that's what I love seeing, having that first experience for many people to see what engraving looks like in person. Yeah, I've been really enjoying the wedding aspect of it.
And people are happy, people they love are getting married.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone's in a great mood.
I know, everyone's in a great mood. Everyone's having drinks, and then they have a glass that they can further drink when they get home.
Oh yeah, engraved, custom.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
special for sure.
Totally.
That's an awesome favor.
Yeah.
I believe it or not, 5 years fly quickly, but also 30 minutes can also fly quickly.
I know.
So before we, end, I wanted to give you a few moments to kind of give words of advice to anyone out there, especially Filipinos, considering what can they do on the side, especially if they're trying to build something on the side. What would you say as kind of words of wisdom, I'd like to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the best advice that I could give, and this is probably very cliche, but as a Filipino American growing up with Filipino immigrant parents, I know that it can be a little tough sometimes to really understand what you want, because oftentimes you are being told what to do and what you should want. So I really encourage you all to take some time to yourself and really self-discover what brings you joy, because in the end, the why of what you're doing, whatever that may be, is what's really going to continue to keep going. And I find that within anything, within your jobs or within your personal lives, a hobby that you're doing, like you want something that you're not going through a phase of. You want something that is going to be sustainable and really fulfills that piece of you. And even if that is short term, and that's okay, because I find that having that short term part of you is still helping you shape of how you are going to be in the future. So my biggest advice is just a lot of self-reflection and just understanding what you truly want as a person, as a creative, whatever that may be. And trying something new and see where that takes you. Because there's absolutely no harm in putting yourself out there. There's only good things that'll come from it.
I love it. Yeah. It's so awesome. And seriously, I'm just at awe with all the guests that I've had. It's just, you guys are so awesome to talk about your story a little bit, and then just to be able to feature all the talent that's really there that nobody knows exists. But yeah, thanks for those that advice too. It's really true. Like, I went through something similar. I call it tough love.
Yeah, 100%.
There's like they're very direct. You know, yes. We're direct with our family, and we might be indirect with everyone else.
Right. Oh, that should be on a t-shirt. That is absolutely so true.
And you know, we love each other so much, but then at the same time, like for me and my experience is that my parents were more hands-off. They didn't really tell me where to go, what to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then I still had to go through that experience of self-discovery and trying to figure out, like, who am I? What am I doing? You know, what are my strengths and weaknesses? So that was a different kind of personal challenge. But yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Just taking the time to have time for yourself. We're always like taking care of everyone else.
Yes.
Keeping everyone else priority. That's very common in our culture. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you so much for having me, Julia. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And so let me make sure that everybody sees, obviously, your website, sweetletterscalligraphy.com, for people who need to follow you. And also here, it's funny, this doesn't usually happen where it just disappears. But yeah, your contact information.
Thank you.
We've been sharing it throughout the episode. Beautiful work. I love calligraphy. It's one of those things like, oh, if I had time, I could just do that all day.
100%. Yeah.
I used to get compliments in my handwriting.
Your handwriting. That is how it all started. And when you're like in elementary school and you're just wanting to be the writer for the class and stuff, it's 100%.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, what? It doesn't come naturally to you? Like,
right.
But yeah, it's definitely a unique skill set for, your handwriting's beautiful. And to do that on glass, it's just great.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So hang tight. I'm going to go ahead and just conclude here. Thank you again. And for those of you who catch this episode, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to feature your story as a Filipino entrepreneur. And Nicole, see you on the other side.
See you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.